welcome to how to play my epic Divine Right board game. It's a 70s game. It was the first board game I ever played, and so in tribute to it, and since I have a 3D printer, I decided to make a 3D version of the game. So first I want to show you the board. Um, these are all the lands of Mivori, and each stronghold is illustrated with a 3D model, and under the model there is a well to put the miniatures, and you can see it shows how many starting units. If they're an ally, a non-player ally, you load it with this, and so these little fortresses you see scattered throughout the lands are unmanned fortresses that can be taken by any player, and they automatically have a defensive value of 2, which we'll explain what that means later. All the red marked ones, like here's the Altars of Greystaff, usually have some kind of value of going to that place. So when you're marching your armies across the board, you'll want to stop at the red places. Each player, when we begin the game, I'm going to show you the cards that are used in the game first. And what we're going to do for an example is we're going to use this purple land, Mivior, as our example player. If you come around this way, and here are the cards that are used in the game. And the first thing we do is we, depending upon how many, 4 to 6 players, we pass out a card, and that tells you what kingdom you will play as your primary kingdom. And then what you're going to do is try to ally non-player kingdoms for your game. So once you get this, what you do is you come over here, and you'll get a player mat that is has all the information you need to play the game, and then a rule book, and on the back of the rule book is a turn order synopsis, so that you can figure out what to do next. And the book is full of information about your kingdom, about the leaders that you might get in the game. And so when it's not your turn, what we want is players to be reading in the book and learning how to use the pieces they just gained. So we start each turn by reaching in the turn bag, and in the turn bag there are order chips, and depending upon the order that you draw, this is for all 6 players, is what turn you'll have, who will go first, second, third, fourth, on and so on. And then the other components of the game is you have actual physical 3D armies that fit on the top, and each of them have a magnetic spot, so that when you march an army, you add this to it, and this is Army 1. And then depending upon what kind of units you have, you put units under it, and so when you march across the board, no one knows how many units, how strong that army is. You just pick it up, and then you'll see how the leader goes on top of that stack. So then there's these markers, and whenever you conquer something, let's say I conquered this city, I would put this marker here to let me know on my collection round how much gold I get, and once I conquer enough lands, that's how you win the game, is conquering all these lands. Each player has 3 types of leaders. They have their ambassador, their envoy, and their king. And so every player will have these 3 players marked with their color. And here's some of the other components. These are the order tokens. I'll show you how to use those in a minute. And then you get a dice that has a skull on it for failures, and a faction seal for a triumphal win when you're asked to roll a 10-sided dice. So these are the units. These are what the ships look like. There's little ship flags. If your faction has ships, you can add a ship flag to the ship to denote what faction it's aligned to. And occasionally this one's glued on. There's a couple factions that have their things already glued on, so you just use, this is number 10. So each player faction can have up to 10 armies and 2 elite units. The elite units are noted by the horsed mounted units, so they travel faster and they have a higher combat value. So let's go through a turn now, and so you can see we've drawn our turn sheet. We know we're player 1. The first thing we do is collect taxes, and we look to see how many flags we have. We've got a capital, so we get 3 gold for that. And we have 1, 2, 3 ports, and each of those get 2 gold, so 2 gold for that. And then a town. Is there any towns here? No, there's no towns. So that's all this would get until they conquered more lands. And so what you want to do in this game is conquer the smaller. You don't want to try to go after their capital, although if you do have enough resources to go after their capital, you get a lot more victory points for getting that capital, and you deprive them of certain abilities. So the next thing you do after you mark what your tax collection is and you collect the coins is every 3rd turn we have what we call kingly negotiations, and that's you're negotiating with other players, and since you can't have any true alliance with another player because that alliance only applies to the turn that you're on. So there are 2 things you can have. You can have a truce, which means I'm not going to fight you this turn, you're not going to fight me. Or a pact, which says we're going to go after X player's kingdoms or allies this turn. And you can have a truce and a pact. So you say, let's not fight each other, but we're going to go after X player's stuff this turn together. And then there are a lot of cards that say nothing, and that's so that when it's every third turn, when it's the kingly negotiations, you pass a card out to all the other players, and it may say nothing on the card, but the other players don't know if you're making a truce or a pact or just faking us out. And some of them even have funny things like um, just say no. So the other player just shakes their head no, and everybody thinks, oh, they're turning down the truce or the pact. You can, when you get a card, you can do whatever you want with it. You can say yes, no, um, thumbs up, thumbs down. Um, you can laugh. One of them says laugh and agree, even though there's nothing that really happens. So it's a way to fake people out during that, and that only happens once every 3 turns. So you want to strategically ally, usually with take a pack with someone that you can't attack anyway, and but you're both surrounding a particular other player enemy or one of his allies. The next thing to do is the leader card bid. And so we have leader cards. Let me get one here. And these are your depending upon how many players are in the game, we lay down, let's say there's 4 players, we lay down 4 cards, and then we start with the first player. He bids on the first card. He can bid whatever he bids, and for that card, and then the second player next to him, or in the second place, can either raise the bid or pass. If he passes, he's done with that card. And then once we go one time around in a circle, we flip over the card and read what the player is, the leader is. This is General Bumar, if leading Pawn's army. So anytime you have a general that leads the particular faction that you own, you get an extra bonus. And he gets 1 star regardless for being a general. And then he also gets a +3 when recruiting Easternling horselings. So on the borders of the land, there's southern desert tribes all along here that players can go to and recruit, or there's northern barbarian tribes, and the stump hole holds the 1 or ogre recruitment. If you go here, you can get pirates. If you go Eastern horsemen, southern tribes, northern things, ogres. So on any corner of the board, edge of the board, there's a little recruiting stations that you can come to and recruit. In this case, this guy gets a +3 to his roll. So if that first player actually won this leader, he gets to take out the leader hex and place it at any of his strongholds. So let's say I got this guy, and I keep this card for reference. And then when I'm ready to lead an army out, let's say I have 2 units and this leader, so I use this army to march across, or maybe I will have one of these boats. Oh, boy. It's broken. Let me just do that. One of these boats ferry the army across across the lands, and then when it lands, I would put this army marker back out and put all the units under it, and the lead, whoever's leading it. Every army out in the field has to be led by a general. So you start with a leader or general, 5 leaders and generals. You can have up to, again, 10 armies, so you can have 5 more generals or leaders that you get from these cards. And as you can see, there's 1-star, 2-star, and 3-star generals. The 3-star generals are the most powerful generals. Some have magic abilities. Some you can see whatever faction they are from, so that if it's, they're kind of buried under here. This is the dwarves. This has no faction. This is Rombune, and this is the Black Hand. And so if you have a ally or a player kingdom that's in that faction, you want this leader to represent their armies, because he's going to be a lot more powerful. So you don't have to have a leader for other kingdoms that you ally with, but if you use a leader, he gets to use his star bonus or his ability. Some have movement abilities, some have other abilities. So that's how you play with the leaders. And the next thing you do is you place your orders, and I'm going to show you all the different orders. There's 6 order tokens per order. So these are movement tokens, which allow the player to move. A 1-star token allows you to move a further distance, and a 2-star token, which is, where is it? Stuck together. There it is. There's a 2-star token, and that gives you a further ability with it. Normally, when you move, you have a penalty to your combat strength for marching your troops, but with a 2-star, you have no penalty. So what you do is you place, wherever your army is, you place face down the order that you want for that thing. Remember, that general has a 1-star, so I would want to use a 1-star token for movement if that was what I was wanting to do. So if I didn't want to move, if I wanted to just defend is the only thing that you don't need to place. If all that army wanted to do was defend, they don't really need a token. But since I have a leader with 1-star, I would put a 1-star defend token face down on there, which would give an added advantage. So that's defending. And then this is what we call a support token. This is where strategy, a player's strategy comes in. Let's say there's an army fighting over here, and I'm within 2 squares of the thing. I can move next to that army and support it, and that adds a combat strength to that army's battle, its attack, which is the, if I'm attacking, this is the attack token thing. So if I was in a fight, I would be attacking, and I might have another unit supporting me. The thing about supports is they don't get the bonus of their leader. So you have to really think through, do I want to use this army as a support army, or um, because it has a leader, or should I use it for the other thing you can do is a raid. This is a raid token, and a raid allows you to move so many, whatever your movement allowance is, which most of the field units are 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then move back, attack, and you roll a dice and see if you remove any of their units, and then you go back to your starting position. So this is a raid token. So those are the orders. Everybody places face down, so you don't know what the other players' plans are until a later stage in the game. And then we start. That's done all corporately, where everybody does it together at the same time to save time. And then what happens is we take out our dice, and if you flip this over, oh, it's a two six-sided dice. Or no, it's a 1 12-sided dice. I need to get that dice. So you roll the dice and you read what the event does. You might lose a unit. You might gain a unit. You can bring in reinforcements. If you roll high, you get help from afar and get a free non-player monarch allied to you. Here's also a summary of the turn. And the next thing we do is, after you find out what action that you took, is you get 2 diplomatic actions. Now, where are the 2 guys? Oh, here they are. So my king is at its capital. I'm going to keep him there for now. And I take my ambassador, can be placed anywhere on the board. So let's say he goes to this non-player ally, and he and this envoy then has to move his 10 movement allowances, and he can go to the elves, the dwarves, the non-player kingdoms, the barbarians, so he has to move slowly, and so you get 2 diplomatic actions. The first one's always your ambassador, and the ambassador plays cards. These diplomacy cards, they're like white magic, black magic's the +3. It has a penalty if you fail. Bribe, and then you may also get movement allowances on these, and you get a 3 cards to start with, and 1 card every turn. So when your diplomatic turn gets in, you get a new card, and you look at them. Can I use this card in this diplomatic action? So let's say I'm going to use a bribe. I need a 6 to ally this, or a 7 to that. He's already allied with another player, and I need to roll a 7, so I'd need to roll a 6 on the 6-sided dice because I only have a +1. You can use up to, you can have up to a +3 cards. So let's see. I could also play bribe and white magic. I couldn't play 2 bribes, but I could play white magic, and I could even play small threat. So that would be a +3 to the roll. So I'd need to roll a 3 or better to ally it, or a 4 or better to deactivate him. If they get deactivated, they become neutral, and then next turn someone can try to activate them. When you activate them, You first pull a monarch card. This monarch is as angry as a dragon with a sore throat. Any ambassador that fails to make diplomatic roll is banished from his kingdom for 2 consecutive game turns. So, depending upon the personality of the um, monarch, you you may, the card, it may say anybody using white magic will be automatically fail. So sometimes you don't know. The first player to go to that kingdom uh, is doing it blind. He has to play his cards first and then reveal his personality. After that, the next player knows, oh, this guy, you don't want to play this card, or you're in trouble. So that's the first diplomatic action. The second diplomatic action takes place if a leader is in one of these strongholds wherever there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different northern barbarian tribes that you can recruit from. There is only one Orgy tribe, and then there is, let's see how many of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Easternly Horse Lords, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 desert tribes that you can recruit from. So your second diplomatic action is if your leader, let's say my leader is he was an Easternly Horse Lord guy. He manages to get way over here to this village. Now he gets a +3 in trying to recruit this tribe of Easternly horsemen. And depending upon his roll, that's when you roll a d10. He can get, if he rolls really bad, he would die. They would kill him. If he rolls really good, he would get the chieftain and probably 6 or 7 units to join him. And they can leave as a separate army or join his army depending upon the rules of the game. Again, you always have to read the rule book during your off turn so that you know, can I do this, or what can I do next? So that's the move, the diplomatic turn. The king can also leave his castle. He always gets a +2 on all diplomacy, but he's in danger of being assassinated or killed if he's in a stronghold. So if he's here and another ambassador that has assassination ability, he can go. You have to leave your like I have to leave this until the end of everybody's turn, and so if another player had an assassin, he could send them to this city and attempt to assassinate my ambassador, which would put him out of the game, so he couldn't do diplomatic actions. I would lose a few turns until I trained a new guy. But the king is very powerful if he leads his own army. He has diplomatic abilities, and he's the only one that can go to the Temple of Kings and receive a magic gift. Usually people wait until they have some kind of like a dragon or an airship that they can fly their king to the Temple of Kings and receive his magic gift. So that's how you use the 2 diplomatic actions. The next thing you do is you resolve sieges. And a siege, normally in the game, you would have to have control of all the hexes around a kingdom. But because the physicality of this game with these mountains and buildings, you can't completely surround it like you can on a flat map that's drawn. And so as long as you have enough to control, for example, um, this unit has a defensive value of 2, and there may be 3 armies inside of it, let's say. So now he has a defensive value of 5. And so you would need at least 5 combat strength to even attempt to assault this kingdom. And you would normally, let's see, there would be 1, and this controls this, and then this controls this. 3, 4. You would need at least 4 units to completely surround and siege this castle. So you'd need 4 units and a combat strength of 5. So the combat strength, some units have a combat strength of 2. But you'd still need 4 units to completely control this, and you could place them anywhere around the board to illustrate that, as opposed to the original game having to move them around on the map. So that's how a siege is set up, and then you do a siege roll to see if you conquer it. Also, you can acquire siege engines that reduce the strength of the fortress each turn, and a player can also defend with the catapult, and on the beginning of his turn he can roll to see if he can remove one of these siege engines to to raise the the defensive value of the fortress. So then we resolve, after all the sieges are resolved in order turn, then we take all the raid orders. Everybody that has a raid order flips theirs over, and we resolve who raids who based on the chits. And then movement order, everybody moves. Then we say, okay, I might be in a position where I could support two armies, but I have to choose at this point. I'm going to support this army, not this army. And then the actual attack orders, any land battles are fought, any sea battles are fought. These ports are the only place you always have to siege a port. You have to have see, this controls this and this. So if I had a combat value, this is a combat value of 3, and so I would have, this would be 1 unit, and then if I had, let's say, a couple land units, I could siege this port. But I would have to exceed the defensive value, so depending upon how many troops. And this usually has 3 units of regulars and 1 unit of elite inside of here. So they have they're hard to defeat. So that's why you want to, in this game, the strategy is to pick off all the little smaller villages. Like this has no defensive value, so it's easily knock off. You just have to control it. You don't get as much revenue from these small villages, but you still gain victories. And so small land battles are fought. You can, if you move an army here, you can immediately have let them rest and have a defensive value of 2. And you can also assign a new general to any stronghold. So any stronghold you have armies in, they can form a new army and march out from that location. So that's the basic game. At the end of all the battles, we tally up any victory points. If you killed an ambassador, if you killed a king, if you captured a stronghold, if you there's a whole bunch of victory conditions listed in the rule book. and we add up the victory points for that turn, and then start the new turn. Um, uh, the whole cycle again starts, and that's how the basic game is played. Obviously, there's a lot more little detailed rules. Each unit, each leader has a special rules that may violate the general rules. So unless you have a card or a something that negates the basic rules, and usually people have to play this game 2 or 3 turns before they get the feel of it. So I like to play it in a campaign style so that um, it's ongoing, and until your kingdom uh, learns its strategies and its way to play. Um, then finally, when you get enough resources, you make pacts and truces with other kings, and finally take over the map, or control enough markers. When you put out all your markers, the game ends. And this there's 12 markers per faction, and so that's how you play Divine Right on steroids. Thank you.